everybody. Today, Dr. Elizabeth Fleming is going to talk us through career assessments. And she works with a company called Ascend Talent Strategies. They're a service provider for CoreTactic. We signed a service agreement so that we can offer those capabilities and those assessments to our clients as well. We have 3 or 4 clients right now that are at the executive level, and they may be interested in kind of figuring out, like, do they want to do a pivot in their career? Well, this is a great way to get some more data to figure out kind of how that pivot should work. You all know us, and you know what we do, so we'll just kind of go into the next slide here. We're working on being a complete services firm. So from intake, where someone needs life coaching or they need career coaching, all the way through personal brand work, so working on their resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, making sure things get through ATS, career transition support. So how do you find jobs? What's that search strategy? And then also working with clients to make sure that they're happy in kind of the direction that they're going. And then if they want to get a new job, we're going to help them get that new job. So we don't just provide coaching services, we walk them through the whole process. And then we have folks that do recruitment. We're expanding our recruitment team nationwide in a variety of areas. So we'll have IT recruiters on staff, and we're going to have people that do corporate recruiting and marketing recruiting and across the board, all the way through. And for veterans, we offer 3 pro bono sessions. So if anybody knows a veteran that needs some help, the military sometimes doesn't provide a lot of support to help veterans get back into civilian life. So I want us to do that. And we're continuing to expand our network. We're working on the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce right now, and some other organizations, nationwide organizations. And with that, I think we'll hand it over to Elizabeth. And this final slide just kind of highlights where all of our folks have experience. So I worked at Accenture, and Elizabeth has done work with the Boys and Girls Club of Minnesota.
America, or the National too, actually.
Oh, and the National. Okay, awesome. Yeah. General Mills. I've also done consulting with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and a variety of others. So, okay, right. Elizabeth, take it away.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's nice to see you all. We're going to play a game to start. So we're going to play myth or fact as it relates to career assessment. So as you guys will get to know me, I like to be more interactive and kind of have you guys come off of mute. If you want to come on video too and participate, you're free to do that as well. But let's just start off with some myth or fact. So if you want to throw it in the chat, or you want to, again, come on mute, off of mute and give your response, that is fine. So let's start with the first one. Money will make me happy. Is that a myth or a fact? As it relates to career.
You want us to put it right in the chat?
Or say it out loud. Either way.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm seeing myth in the chat. All right. Yeah. You are right. It is a myth. So kind of. I guess it's a little bit of a trick question, because yes, we all like money, right? We like to be able to do what we want to do. However, money, a lot of us believe that money is what's going to keep us satisfied in a job, right? This is why so many companies offer more money when they suspect that someone's unhappy and about to leave, right? The truth of the matter is, though, that research shows us that a good role fit and a good culture fit is a much stronger indicator of happiness than money, right? So I've worked internally in HR teams and have been that person who's been told, okay, give them more money. We need them to stay, give them more money, right? Typically what happens is about 6-ish months they stay, and then they're still looking for a job, right? Because they're not happy, that fit isn't there. So really what we know is that people who do not enjoy what they're doing will eventually become dissatisfied regardless of how much money they make. Now, I want you to hear me say that I'm not suggesting you take less than market value. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just kind of trying to reorient you a little bit from a lens perspective to what is it that makes you happy, and how you feel fulfilled in your role. And by the way, if you guys have any comments at any point, feel free to just throw it out there. You don't have to like raise a hand or anything like that. Okay, we can stop at any point. All right, here's the next one. only one career will make me happy. Once I choose a career, I'm stuck with it for life. Truth or myth? Okay, so myth.
Elizabeth, I have a question on this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Could culture kind of shade this one a little bit different, or kind of, different cultures?
Yeah. You mean like cultures within organizations or cultures like personal cultures and all that?
Personal cultures, how
Absolutely.
people are raised too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I know that, we've talked about it before, Nick, that there's a lot of, there's just different cultures have different ways of looking at things, right? So I know I'd mentioned to you that I had somebody I was on a dissertation committee for, and their whole focus was on looking at kind of career focus within a subset of the Asian community. And the focus for that particular group was, parents said, you need to become a doctor, you need to become a lawyer, right? But there were so many people that wanted to be artists and they wanted to be musicians and they wanted to work in technology and all of those things. But that wasn't necessarily acceptable for the family and for the culture overall, right? So I think that as we kind of transition and we get some of our newer generations kind of entering the workforce, we're going to be faced with some of those challenges and maybe even some kind of uncertainty about who am I and what do I want to do and what's going to help me feel fulfilled. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm seeing a myth on this one too, and you're right. So many fields actually have the potential to satisfy our career goals, right? Because a lot of us derive satisfaction from a variety of activities, right? I don't know about you guys, but I love sports. I love music. I love helping people. I like volunteering. Those are all very different skill sets, right? What I do in sports and when I play hockey with my kids is very different than what I do when I'm working on piano, right, with my child or whatever it may be. And so there's a ton of career possibilities. If you're ever interested in looking, kind of getting like geeking out a little bit and looking at it, the department or the Bureau of Labor Statistics rather puts out a document every year. It's an interactive website that looks at the different careers that we have here in the United States, what kind of education it takes to do that career, what the outlook is for that career, what the pay expectations are in different areas of the country, all of that. And so when we put in our census data, that then gets translated out into these different areas. It's called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. I can send a link to you guys here in a minute, but I definitely would recommend looking at it because there are so many possibilities, right? So it really is unrealistic. It's just not realistic to think that only one thing would be the right choice for you. Okay. So the average adult really doesn't settle on a career until sometime in their 30s, believe it or not. Your interests, your values, what you're really good at, your abilities, your aspirations may be different at ages 20, 30, 40, 60 even, right? Even into retirement, right? So you change and modify your career accordingly, right? Changing a career is only a problem if you think it's a problem. And I really hope that you guys hear me say that. It's only a problem if you think it's a problem, right? Because it's not. It's really normal. It's very, very common. All right, let's do another one. Hopefully this is fun. I like doing these kind of games, All right, so career decision making is a process, not an event. Myth or fact? Fact, I'm seeing. Oh, there we go. Yes, indeed. I should have put fact, but I put truth, whatever. Same thing, right? Career decision making, yes, it is a process. It's not an event, right? So a lot of times people will kind of, if you guys can remember back to, when you're in high school or even when you were a kid and people would say to you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? A lot of times we hear kiddos say, I want to be a police officer. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a doctor, whatever it may be. And sometimes they end up there and sometimes they don't, right? So it's really important that we look at kind of how that it is a process. It takes time to figure out what that looks like and what that looks like for you. So really the important thing is to really engage in those activities that help you learn about yourself, help you learn about those career options that are available to you, and really kind of go through that process and take it one step at a time, and knowing that change is okay, and that you have the ability to make change in the future if you're in something you don't like. All right, career assessment tools are all the same. Myth or fact? Myth. Yeah, you guys got this. Maybe I should make my game harder. I don't know. They're not the same, right? Career assessments are not the same. They are not built for the same purpose. Some, yes, are readily available and less expensive, right? But they may not be super reliable or valid. And when we talk about that, we're really looking at, if you take this assessment now, and then you take it again in 3 years, are your results going to be relatively the same? Right? They may change a little bit because our lives change, our context change, our interests change, all of that. But ultimately, they should be pretty similar, right? They also should be valid tools. So I saw this TikTok recently, and there's this guy who like looks at all these different random things that are out there, and he's like, yeah, I'm an extrovert, and I'm this, and I'm that, and whatever. The truth is those tools have not been validated. We don't know that is accurately representing what's happening for that person. And actually, he kind of makes fun of it to some extent. So I can send it to you if you're interested in that. It is pretty humorous, but that could be because I'm a nerdy business psychologist. I don't know if you'll think it's funny, but I'll still send it to you. So really, my advice to all of you is it's really important to look at who are the people administering the measures. Do they have the education, the experience, and the expertise to really, truly understand what is being said, right? Because we can all read a report out, right? But can we really conceptualize what it's trying to say and apply that to the person? So that's my first bit of advice. I'd also, again, make sure that when you're looking at career assessment, you're basing your decisions on those valid and reliable measures, right? Because you don't want to go down a path and then find out later that, oh, this misled me, right? Now, if you have any questions about whether something is valid or reliable and all of that, I'm happy to talk with you about it. Sometimes research is readily available. Sometimes companies keep it close to the chest, and you just kind of have to figure out how do you want to go about that? So feel free to reach out to me at any point. Okay, I have one more. A career counselor or business psychologist will tell you exactly what is right for you. I'm seeing a myth in there. Yes, and it is a myth. So I would love to say, Nick, Brady, Travis, everyone on this call, this is exactly what you should do. It will make you happy, and you will live a life super fulfilled and will never have any questions, right? I'd love to be able to say that to you. Now, if I could do that, I think I would be like a billionaire, right? Because people just pay tons of money to know exactly what it is. The truth is that I can't do that. Really, what my job is, and what the job of a career counselor would be, is to use these tools, these measures, to help guide you in your career decisions, right? That's the truth. That's part of what we're here doing at CoreTactic as well, right? Is helping guide people, giving them the information to empower them to make decisions that are good for them, right? I do want to just throw this in there. It's important not just to rely on one test or one meeting with someone to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life, right? Ultimately, you are the career decision maker. You need to consider what your values, your experiences, what are your kind of life circumstances, right? What do I need to support myself, support my family, whatever that is, in order to figure out what a good career match would be. So working with a career counselor, a coach, a business psychologist can help you identify some of those things, really by just having conversations around it, right? And then also by adding data to the mix as well. Okay, I'll give you guys a little bit of a break on the participation for a second, but any questions before I jump to the next slide?
Elizabeth, are there any kind of groups of people that career assessments may not be as helpful? Like
Hmm.
for people that are maybe just getting, like just graduated college, can it be as helpful for them as it would be for a mid-level
Yeah,
manager or an executive that might need some guidance?
that
What are
is
your thoughts on the different groups?
yeah, that's a great question. My initial reaction is no, I think it could be beneficial to everyone, even kids. I run some pro bono workshops with some schools in my local area where we do fun activities to help them kind of figure out what do I like? What do I like to do? I think we can start early on. And I think that it is important that we find a good match. And we pick tools, we pick people, we pick coaches based on the needs of the person, versus just applying a one size fits all approach. So kind of a yes, no, and maybe.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well then let's talk about what is a career assessment because now I've made you play this game. Career assessment really is the process of making an evaluation in the context of a career, right? It's no different than an assessment in another place, right? When you take a certification exam, right, we're evaluating your skill set in a particular product or whatever it is, or you go to the doctor and you do an assessment to see if you have high blood pressure, right? It's evaluating something, right? And this is no different, again, just as applied to the career. It's easy for all of us, myself included, to kind of look for that quick fix or that silver bullet, but the reality is that a lot of assessments are not going to give you the results that you're looking for, because you need to look at something that is really comprehensive and holistic, because all of us are made up of a lot of different things. As I mentioned before, we like different things, we do different things, but we're also uniquely us, right? For instance, assertiveness, and if it's okay, I pick on you, Nick. Assertiveness for you, Nick, looks probably a lot different than assertiveness for me, right? And so if I give you a tool and it says you are really assertive, okay, but what does that mean? What does that look like? What is that experience like? And how does the context and the environment around you shape how you show up as assertive, right?
Yeah.
Those are things that I think sometimes we look for, and we want the answer, but really being able to dig in and understand what that looks like for you can be really helpful, because it allows you to talk about it more effectively. Yes, I'm assertive, and this is how I approach that assertiveness, right? So again, that comprehensive, holistic, we're looking at how do you behave? What is your personality like? What do you like to do? All of those pieces. Again, career assessment should be evidence-based, reliable, valid. Does the research done on the instruments, is it rooted in science, right? And in the same vein, does the person administering it know how to interpret the results and give you helpful information so you can make those decisions about your career, right? Those are important questions to ask. And lastly, it should be tailored to you, right? I get a little frustrated when I see different firms or companies just kind of giving a data dump, or worse, not giving data to the person at all. So they took the assessment and then they never heard back any of the results. That drives me bonkers, because it should be, your data should be written in a way and discussed in a way that is unique to you, to your goals and aspirations, and then also giving you some guidance as what steps you could take based on the information that you have in that moment. So overall, career assessment is really big. There's a lot of different people that do a career assessment. But again, I would just encourage all of you, if you're looking to do this, to really look into, is this what I need? Is it going to answer the question that I'm asking? Okay, another little piece of we're going to do a little bit more interactive stuff. So out of curiosity, does anyone know who said this quote? If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. I'm going to be excited. I feel like I can see David is writing. I have a feeling he might know.
There's no time to Google it.
I know. Sorry about that. Well, I'll tell you what it is. Yogi Berra said this. So you guys know Yogi Berra, legendary baseball player, manager, right? All of that. He said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. My question to all of you is, have you ever ended up someplace else? Have you ever ended up in a place where you found out it just wasn't for you? See you nodding. Yeah. See a couple of people
Mhm.
nodding. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? And I would like to hear some opinions. What was it that told you it wasn't a good fit for you? Like, what were the indicators that you said, "Oh, this just doesn't feel right for me"?
The culture. So I went to a place that had a completely different culture than I've ever worked at before.
Mhm,
It was a limited liability partnership company,
mhm,
and the culture was crazy. Folks worked 24 hours a day, and it was just
mhm,
all about results, results, results. Less on how do we support our employees, how do we encourage growth, how do we help them with their career. So
mhm.
yeah. So now I know to
Culture.
look out for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else want to share anything?
In my situation, I would agree with Nick. It was culture, but it was a situation that was the company I was at was acquired by a different company. Different company had very different culture. Culture
Mhm,
was not necessarily a good fit for my working style. So
sure.
it was kind of one of those things where I didn't have full control of it, but now, as being a person in transition, I have full control of where I want to be and go.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anyway, that was my situation.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's
Mhm.
great. You learned something from it, right? I think that the one of the best parts about being human is that we get to critically analyze the situations we're in and then learn from them and then make decisions, right? We have control over that, and I think that's really cool. Um, anyone else? I don't want to cut anyone off. I can't see everyone, so if not, that's okay. All right. All right. Well, ultimately, the reason I like this quote, right, is because I think the biggest piece when we think about career and we career transition, or just even getting into a career, whatever it looks like for you, is really to reach your full potential, to find the right fit for you. You have to know yourself, right? If you don't know what kind of culture is good for you, in the examples that you two just gave, how will you know what questions to ask, right? If you don't know how you prefer to work, if you don't know what you're really good at, or things that you could use some more support in, how will you know to ask those questions in those interviews and when you meet with some of those people, right? I get it. It's easier said than done. Knowing yourself is not like the easiest thing on the planet. But again, I think it's important to understand what your strengths are, your areas for development, what motivates you to do your work, and also what drains you, right? Because we all have things that we don't like to do. And that's an important thing to consider as well. So I want to get into some of the more kind of tactical pieces of career assessment. Again, not every firm does it exactly the same way. I am talking to you about the way CoreTactic and Ascend Talent Strategies looks at assessment. So you may see it differently, or if you've gone through it in the past, you may have experienced it differently. But we really understand that finding a perfect fit or nurturing your growth as a professional, it requires more than just a glance at a resume, right? Now, you're probably thinking, well, that's exactly what these hiring teams do. They look at my resume, right, in talent acquisition, and they decide if they want to talk to me, right? It's true. That's true, right? But if we can give you information to tailor your resume and to help you talk about your resume and your experience in a way that is truly and uniquely you, don't you think that could help, right? It could help you get over that initial hurdle in that process. So to kind of give you a leg up on those interviews, and again, tailor your resume so it represents you and your interests. So through the assessments here at CoreTactic, our lens here, we really do look at the whole person, not just a segment of who you are. So this includes a few different things, including looking at personality. How do you operate on a social level with others? What does your internal narrative look and sound like? How are you driven to achieve and accomplish your goals? What does flexibility, adaptability, and change look like in your world? And how do you receive feedback from others, right? So that's one one of the 4 areas. Also includes work style, which I think, Brady, you just mentioned, right? Making sure that the culture is accepting and even leans into your work style so that you can do your work effectively, right? So are you someone who likes to work independently, right? Do you make decisions really quickly? Do you consider data in your decision making? Do you like structure and process? And maybe what kind of a team would be a good fit for you? So we look at those pieces as well. We also look at motivations. So I think I brought this up before, but these are the things that get you out of the bed in the morning, right? Why do you do what you do? What is your why? But it's also about the things that are draining for you. And I do want to just make note that even if something is draining for you, it doesn't mean that you can't do it, right? It's just probably going to be less stimulating or exciting for you, and you might find yourself tired at the end of it, right? I'm not a huge brainstormer. I'm a very quick paced person. I like to gather the data and then make a decision and move. And so for me, having to be really, really cautious and slow moving and all of that is draining, right? And I know that about myself. And so if I know I'm walking into a brainstorming session that isn't going to lead with or end with a decision, I have to set myself up differently. And I actually changed my schedule accordingly so that I have time on the back end to regroup, right? But I need to know that about myself first. And lastly, it's about cognition. I'm not giving you an IQ test, I promise. That's not what we're doing. It's rather looking at what is your unique method of thinking critically about things or working through problems. So those are the 4 areas that within our assessments we measure. And depending on the level of assessment, if you were to go through, there's also some interviews, a little bit of coaching, and then also kind of the deliverable, the report out that you get gives you some really tangible things that you can take forward to be able to find that next job, or, look to the promotion or whatever it is that you're looking for. So I think those are important pieces as well. Any question about the measurement piece of it? All right.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you produce the report, does it basically just say, and I know the answer to this, but I want to ask it because I think some others may have the same question. Does the report just say you're this? Or does the report kind of give you like a range and kind of show you where you're at on the range? Or how's the data represented in the report?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. So some tools will do that. They'll give you a report out and it's kind of a little bit more canned, based on normative data, kind of the people they've used to validate the instrument. My style is I actually take the time, I sit down, I talk with you, I look at the data, really try to understand it, and then offer you a written report that is tailored to what your questions are, right? So it is very just specific to you. I don't know if I'm answering that question very well. I just realized that the last slide that I have didn't actually save on my PowerPoint, which is a bummer because it's my favorite one. Oh, it's kind of frustrated. So I might pull up a different screen. But yeah, no, it is very tailored to you. So I know that I've worked with people who, and I feel like a broken record, Nick, because you've heard this before, but looking at, is corporate the right environment for me? Should I be a consultant? Should I go and be an entrepreneur? Like, what does that look like? It's less about putting people in a box and really more about helping you understand your own self, and what would be good for you. I'm not a believer in putting people in boxes. I don't think that's a fair way to do things. I also don't think it's fair for companies to do that to people. And so that's part of my mission in life, is to change the way talent acquisition happens so that we're not putting people in boxes. Because frankly, I think we miss a lot of really great candidates because they don't fit into the boxes we create. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when we think about career assessment, right, there are a lot of, yes, it takes time. No, it does not take 200 hours, as Nick would like to tell people, or 5 million questions. That is not true. Yeah. There are some, but not that. But there's a lot of, it's pretty fun. I've actually gone through them myself too, with other business psychologists, and I really enjoy what I learn from it. So, but ultimately, it's about again, empowering all of you. It's about giving you data that you can leverage in your life, whether that's your work life, your personal life, all of the above, right? So some of the different benefits of going through, and some of this I've already said before, but a comprehensive view of yourself, right? A holistic understanding of yourself, right? They can provide you a well-rounded view of your strengths, those development areas, and then also cultural fit within the dynamics of a company or a prospective company. So let's say you have a company, you're kind of you think it would be a good fit for you, but you're really not sure. Let's help you figure out what those cultural attributes are that really speak to you, and then help you tailor some questions to ask them so you can get to the heart of, is this company truly a good culture fit for me, right? So we can help you tailor some of those questions to ask, because it's not just about them interviewing you for the job, it's you interviewing the company as well, right? We want you to find a good fit. It's also about objectivity. So, traditional hiring a lot of times relies on subjective judgments about a person. When we do these assessments for companies, right, in the pre-hire process, it is one piece to the greater puzzle. I would encourage you to see that here too. It is one piece to the greater puzzle. By kind of surrounding yourself with different services, like some of the things that CoreTactic offers, you're putting those puzzle pieces together to create that bigger picture. So career assessments allow you to use data, makes it more objective. And ultimately, that really means that you have a better understanding of what your talents are, what your potential is, and then giving you the opportunity to highlight those things and be fairly assessed based on your true abilities, right? And also, in some ways, giving you the language to talk about it. Because I don't know about you, one of the worst questions is like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Like, I hate those questions, because how many times do we kind of just go, oh, well, I'm really social, and sometimes I like people, and sometimes that makes me, it takes longer to get my work done. Like, okay, but really, what are the things you really do want to develop, right? Just a little tidbit of information. When they ask you that, what are your weaknesses? Be honest, and then tell them how you're working on it, right? Because that's what they want to hear, is that you recognize that you have development areas, and they want to hear that you indeed are doing something about it, right? So there's just my little giveaway for the day. It can also help, career assessments can help with alignment or improve fit. So we know that when someone is the right person in the right role, they're more likely to thrive and grow within the organization, stay with the organization longer, and be more invested in kind of what the company is trying to accomplish. So assessment can help ensure that you're moving into the right role when it comes to your skills, your motivations, your personality, as well as your interests and your long-term goals, right? Because if you have really aspirational goals, we want to make sure that this is a company that is going to empower you in those things and not kind of push you down, right? Mm-hmm. It's about insight, so it helps you gain insight into your unique style, as I've said before, so you can make those informed decisions. It's also about personalized development. So how do I say this? There's a lot of people out there who claim that they can do everything that you need to get you where you need to go, right? But a lot of times their process looks very much the same, right? And I would argue that when the process looks exactly the same, it's not personalized, right? And so when you can take these assessments, use that data, you can work with HR teams, you can work with a manager once you're in a role or transition to a new role. You can work with coaches to tailor those development experiences so they suit your needs, right? So it sets you up for success from the beginning, right? Rather than being in a role, figuring out, oh, this is not really working all that well. Now what do I do? You're starting that process on the early end. And also, again, giving you the language to talk to hiring managers about that as well, right? Mm-hmm. And lastly, it's, I think I've gotten all of them. Lastly, it's the cost savings. So I know that at times assessments, services, coaching, all of it can feel like, oh, do I really want to pay for this? Is it really going to be beneficial? All of that. Trust me, I've had those same thoughts myself. But ultimately, selecting the wrong job or the wrong company can be really costly for you from a financial perspective and from a personal perspective, right? If you think about landing in a place that's not good for you or not a good fit, you're looking at job dissatisfaction, career setbacks, especially if you're wanting to kind of grow and move within an organization. So let's get you in the right place from the beginning so that you can grow versus having to start over somewhere else when it doesn't work out, right? Yeah. And so it just, again, helps you to make more accurate decisions, increasing the chance that you land in the right role.